When you're sitting on a large supply of the world's most valuable substance, you almost can't help but become super crazy rich, but it turns out it's a little more complicated than that. You wouldn't think much would come from a country with only 4 million people in it that's smaller than the state of New York. But like they say in real estate, location, location, location. Kuwait is situated over some enviable oil fields, enough to free up the relatively affluent Kuwaitis to make even more money in even more ways. Like any proper accumulation of wealth, the bulk of it is concentrated into 2 families, who make up the top 5 wealthiest people in the nation. Trading places on when you ask and who you ask. The Kharafi family that runs Kharafi Sons are in a neck-and-neck battle for King of Money Mountain with the Alghanim family, who, see if you can detect the pattern here, runs Alghanim Sons. The perennial frontrunner for the Alghanim side of the equation is Bassam Alghanim, son of the conglomerate's founder Yusuf Alghanim. In 2018, he made Forbes' list of billionaires, coming in 1,650th, with an estimated net worth of $1.4 billion, which you would think to be enough money to keep him out of trouble. But Bassam's problems are as old as King Lear. Bassam has a brother who actually works in the family business, and the two have not been able to get along. It got bad enough that in 2008, Bassam filed lawsuits in both the United States and the UK, accusing his brother of hacking his email. Bassam has retained his Kuwaiti citizenship, but to put some distance between him and his brother Qutaiba, he lives in California, where he also got his college degree at the University of California, Berkeley. But it's not like he's living the simple life. He's bought several connected properties in a gated Bel Air community worth $150 million. He's got his own diversified interests to keep him going, investing big in big green. Cannabis, that is, owning several grow stations in Canada. In the tug of war for control of the Alghanim family business, Qutaiba is the winner so far, acting as chairman of his father's business, where his son served as CEO until 2019. Also a graduate of UC Berkeley in 1970, a great time to be a mega rich person in Berkeley, he took that education and opened a fashion store in Kuwait, before eventually inheriting the whole company from his father and successfully elbowing his brother out. That was good enough to put him at 1,613th on the list of billionaires as recently as 2020 at $1.3 billion in net worth. If you're doing some quick math, that doesn't quite add up. We'll get to that. While his brother is holed up in 90210 behind a gate, Qutaiba has converted the family home in Lebanon into an orphanage. He can afford to be generous with Alghanim Sons money, pulling in $2.5 billion in revenue in 2009. That is the last time they felt like telling people how much they make. It's not oil money. Alghanim Sons is a diversified interest that has unexpected origins. Sheep. Now the conglomerate owns 30 brands and operates in 40 countries, with interests and investments across the board. Father Yusuf was able to turn his booming sheep business into an even more booming import business, selling Ford and GM cars in the Middle East, becoming the largest supplier of GM cars in the region. I mean, come on, someone has to import those Cadillacs and Buicks, and they also have a consumer electronics interest, importing Nokia, Sony, Compaq, IBM, and more. Last year, he let go of his Benetti FB272 yacht named Luminosity for $225 million. He hasn't yet given up the yacht life though. He still owns a $25 million yacht, Sanu, that requires an annual output of $2.5 million just to keep it running. Competing for the top spot of richest Kuwaiti is the Kharafi family, who also owns a conglomerate with the imaginative name, you guessed it, Kharafi Sons. Kharafi Sons is a little more earnest about the sons part, with the brothers Fari, Jassem, and Mohammed all working in some capacity for the company built on aluminum and building materials. In 2016, they got out of the fast food business in the Middle East, selling their holdings of their KFC and Hardee's franchises for $2.3 billion. Their sister Faiza isn't one to just live the life of the idle rich. She has become a chemist who was the president of Kuwait University. She has published award-winning findings on corrosion as well. Not bad for a woman from a country that got suffrage in 2005. Faisal Al-Kharafi has taken his massive wealth and converted it into one of the largest and most extensive Porsche collections in the world. He even keeps them in a garage that was inspired by Iron Man movies. Fast and Loud benefactor Dennis Collins visited the facility for his own show, and since then the collection has just grown. It already had some of the rarer birds, like a $1 million Porsche 959 or the exclusive 918 Spider. Kharafi Sons is rated as a $3.3 billion company with its diverse holdings. One of these holdings is a 14% stake in Krispy Kreme donuts, investing over $10 million to acquire 9.1 million shares. The process that begun in 2006 bumped up the donut shop's stock price 9.5% in the process. Wealth is practically an identity for the small Gulf country. Measured by gross national income, Kuwait ranks as 5th in the world, and one of only 5 with an index of over $70,000 per capita, with a GDP in 2017 of over $271.1 billion per capita. Their currency? Oh yeah, also happens to be the most valuable currency in the world, with one Kuwait dinar being worth $3.31. Unlike their highly diversified financial elite, Kuwait's eggs are all in the oil basket, with the black gold accounting for 84% of its imports and occupying anywhere between 80 to 90% of the country's workforce. That massive export wealth has allowed the country to operate without income taxes while still providing free healthcare and education to all Kuwaiti citizens. It's not uncommon for Kuwaitis well-to-do to have full-time household staff, often made up of expats who go to the back of the line for those services. The award-winning $500 million Al Hamra Tower stands at 412 meters, making it the largest structure in the country. The building is made up of carved concrete, making it the largest carved building in existence. Its 24-meter-tall lobby is an engineering masterpiece by creating that cavernous opening without columns, instead using the shape of the outside structure for support, a design that has won the building many awards. Fast and exotic cars are not a rare sight in the country, but it's still investing heavily in public transportation. Despite that, exotic manufacturers like Ferrari still pay special attention to this super rich country. When Ferrari introduced the all-fire driver's machine, the F8 Tributo, they had a special event in the country. The introduction brought in 250 Ferrari faithful and 100 Ferraris to the Kuwait Motor Town at an event that also featured a Ferrari challenge race, with participants piloting spec Ferrari 488s. Ferrari considered Kuwait a valuable stop in the Middle East after the F8's Geneva introduction. The mid-engine V8 sports car that has a sticker price of over $276,000 apiece benefited from the seasonal lighting to make for some dramatic photos. All this wealth does come with its issues. The most obvious, of course, is the unwanted national attention it received in 1990. For 8 years, the wealthy nation had been lending money to Iraq in its war against Iran to buy military equipment. When the Iraq-Iran war ended, Iraq suggested that maybe they could just get those debts relieved. Of course, Kuwait disagreed. Iraq disagreed even more vehemently, attempting to forcibly annex the country and its rich oil fields. It took an international coalition of nations to push Iraq back out of Kuwait, but that process has changed the shape of the Middle East with long-lasting effects, including American coalition forces that are being stationed and staged in the country, an arrangement that not everyone in the country is crazy about, a story we've heard before. More directly damaging, however, has been falling oil revenues that over the last 20 years has slowly depleted the national reserves, causing Kuwait to consider an income tax for the first time ever. The biggest issue, however, explains why all Kuwait's billionaires are referred to in the past tense. Even for diversified interests, 2020 came for all of us, reducing the net worth of Kuwaiti's top earners until the present day, where no Kuwaiti national actually makes the billionaires list. The last man standing was Abdulaziz Wahidi, who was on the list as recently as 2021 with a net worth of $1.39 billion. But as of this writing, no Kuwaiti national appears on the Forbes list of billionaires. Falling oil revenues has led Kuwait to a scramble to both diversify its exports but also invest big in new technologies that are poised to replace oil in the future. Despite falling revenues, Kuwait has defined itself by its foreign aid spending, having formed the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development in 1961, the year it gained independence from British colonial rule. That fund has been used to aid development in Arab countries and even supported Arab Spring reform movements. Despite being burned the first time around, in 2017, Kuwait hosted a funding program that raised $30 billion to assist in the rebuilding of Iraq, with $2 billion coming straight from Kuwait itself. Like any nation with a concentration of wealth, cost of living has become an issue for the country. If you don't come from a family with a large conglomerate with their family name on it, you have to work in the oil industry in order to hope to find work, which is only able to employ 70% of eligible workers, with as much as roughly 90% of those workers being in oil. Kuwait has formed a domestic fund called HOPE, or Helping Others Practically and Every Day. Man, acronyms are hard. Operation HOPE is an NGO that donates resources to clean up the streets of Kuwait, since the population has a tendency to litter, and provide resources and services to the country's 100,000 homeless people. HOPE money also goes towards the Philippines. On top of the nation's aid spending, the fiercely Muslim country, where alcohol is banned, has a population that is committed to the Muslim practice of zakat that asks the faithful to donate 2.5% of their wealth. To help transition the country from dependency on oil exports, the Kuwait Investment Authority, that manages Kuwait's $700 billion wealth fund, invested in Saudi Arabian green initiatives to reduce greenhouse gases and position the Arab nations for a future where oil is not prominent. To that end, they were a founding member of the One Planet Sovereign Wealth Fund Working Group with the mission of smoothing the transition to a low-emissions economy so that the country is not left holding the bag when the music stops on oil. Don't worry too much about Kuwait's former billionaires. With their diversified holdings, they're still crazy rich, just not 10 digits rich. But hey, the family with the Canadian grow operation can team up with the one with the Krispy Kreme holdings. Problem solved. Wait, I should be a billionaire.